Hello and welcome to Conversations with Nurit. My guest today is Leonard Jacobson, and I'm speaking to him from Budapest, and he is in California. I haven't met Leonard yet, actually, except for 2 minutes ago. I heard of Leonard from my good friend Israel Sushman about 3 years ago, and I found Israel, his long lost friend. I found him on Facebook, and he was telling me, "You got to hear about this man, Leonard Jacobson." And I said, "What's so special about him?" And he says, "The funny thing is, before he even said that Leonard is present or awakening or a teacher, he said he's normal. He's like a regular person." And it was very funny because Israel and I come from a background of Indian teachers that they sit on a throne and, somebody comes and peels their grapes and all that kind of stuff. And Israel was so moved that you're a regular. Well, you're not so regular, but you appear to be a normal person and not sitting on some kind of throne, and very approachable. And so that was wonderful.
I have a regular name, I wear regular clothes.
Yes, so I hear.
And I'm not sitting on the throne. And I don't encourage the projection onto me that many gurus do encourage.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. I've had enough of that. So anyways, so I started listening to your webinars. I've listened for about 3 years. They're absolutely wonderful. I love the simplicity. I read your book, Journey into Now. It's fantastic. I'm just going to show it for a second. I think every household, is it upside down? No, it's okay. I think every household should have that book, and we'll talk about it in a moment. But I've got to say that for many years, I've practiced reciting mantras and chanting and all these things. And Leonard, I got to tell you, you've got the most liberating mantra ever. I heard from you. You know what I
mean? Tuesday night, right?
Yes.
It's one of my favorite mantras.
Do you want to impart it to the audience?
Well, it might be a little out of context, but it's a mantra that I encourage people to use in a very playful way in order to liberate themselves. Liberate themselves from what? Liberate themselves from worrying about what other people think of them, or worrying about other people's judgments, trying to please others or live up to the expectations of others. This is like putting ourselves into a prison where we're unable to be ourselves because we're so anxious about all these things. So the question is, how do we liberate ourselves from these patterns that cause us to lose ourselves? How do we liberate ourselves? And that's where the mantra comes in. I'll make it a traditional mantra, and I will sing it for you like a mantra.
Okay.
Fuck you. Fuck you. I'm not here for you. I'm not here to please. I'm not here to meet your expectations. I'm not here to gain your acceptance. I'm just here. I'm here, and I'm free to be myself, to express myself, the authentic human being that I am. I will not limit myself anymore by worrying about what you think of me, or whether you judge me or reject me, or whether you love me, or whether you think I'm good enough. So many of us are afflicted with these limiting patterns. And, we need to liberate ourselves. And one of the fun ways to liberate ourselves is with that mantra. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. But it has to be playful. You can say that as you're walking around through the supermarket, walking around the supermarket. When you see someone, just say to them, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Now make sure they can't hear you. Otherwise you put yourself into trouble. This is just between you and God. It's between you and your soul. You're taking this opportunity to liberate yourself from these very limiting patterns. And it has to be playful. If it's not playful, it won't work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's wonderful. You see that it worked on me already. I can hardly speak.
There you go.
That's so wonderful. Yeah, I know the need to please people, I mean, is so strong, and it's really, I think, one of the strongest ways that people are pulled out of presence. You know,
Absolutely, and it all begins in childhood and then evolves as we get older. With each year, it gets stronger. But it does begin in childhood, and it has everything to do with the fact that our parents, although it's not their fault, but they're not present with us in the way we need. And then we experience all sorts of conditions, conditional acceptance, conditional love, if we're a certain way, if we do it the way they want, if we meet their expectations, if we're a good boy or a good girl, then we'll get the love and acceptance we need. And most of us didn't receive that, and that's where these patterns originate from.
right. Yeah, I mean, if we don't eat our Brussels sprouts, we get punished. If we bring a good report card, we get rewarded. I mean, it's built into our mentality so strongly.
Yes, these things get programmed into the mind, and then that affects every aspect of our lives. I'm not good enough. I'm not loved. I can't do it. I'm not acceptable. There's something wrong with me. I'm all alone. I'm abandoned. These are such common limiting beliefs that we all live with, and they limit us tremendously. We don't need to live with those limiting beliefs any longer. It's time to liberate ourselves.
Yes, yes. Now, in your teaching, it's one of the things that I love about it so much is that you don't teach people to cultivate spiritual behavior or even cultivate forgiveness or cultivate letting go of these things. You get people to be present first.
Yes, in fact, I could probably say this is not a spiritual teaching.
Hallelujah.
It's something different. It's really a teaching about the awakening of human consciousness. And the truth is, as we awaken into awakened consciousness, awakened presence, we actually transcend the spiritual. We transcend the soul. We transcend the psychic. We transcend the physical. It's a transcendent state of consciousness. And it transcends every aspect of duality and opens us into oneness. And it's not spiritual. I don't see any need for spirituality when we're present, because in presence we're awake in the truth. We're experiencing the oneness that is always here, ever present. At the deepest levels of presence, we will experience oneness, God, and heaven on earth. And there's no need for spirituality. Just be authentic, be present, and express yourself as the authentic human being that you are, without concern with what others think of you or what's right or wrong or what you should or shouldn't be doing. Just be yourself, be alive, come alive in presence. You see, this is the problem with human existence. Everything on this planet, every tree, every flower, every animal, every insect, every fish, everything is already present. Everything. Everything is existing in its true and original state, except for one thing, and that's humans. We're the only ones not yet here. And we're lost in the mind, lost in unconsciousness, and we're pretty dangerous to each other and to the natural environment in our unconsciousness. So it's just for humanity to awaken, that's all.
Yes. Problem is with humanity too is there are so many teachings today. Some call themselves spiritual, some even don't call themselves spiritual. New Age teachings that use the mind. The mind is so tricky. The mind has found ways to get around transcending itself, and it thinks that it transcends itself. I'm sure
that is so true, Nurit. Very, very true. And it's not until you awaken into presence, you become truly present, which is transcendent of the mind, that you recognize so much of your spirituality has existed at that level of mind. It's just the mind and ego and you at that level of mind and the ego becoming spiritualized. Exactly. And you know, the hardest thing to awaken from is an ego that has become spiritualized.
Yes, I know.
The very hardest thing to awaken from is an ego that thinks it's enlightened.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, you would have to meet someone with a very big stick to break you out of that one.
Yes, I think I have. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I've been 40 years doing spirituality with my ego and with my mind, and it's till I met. Well, he's my husband now, but my teacher, very much like you, teaches presence, and I was shocked to learn that I was doing it all with my mind, and
Right.
so that's why I appreciate so much the simplicity of your teaching. I find that most people don't want simplicity; they want the complexity. And one of the reasons I was so eager to have you I'm so eager to get this video out in Hungary is because we find here that people are wonderful. They're very intelligent, but they're also very intellectual. And because they've been so closed up from the rest of the world, there is a perception here that anything from America is fantastic, including all the new age hoopla around spirituality. And it's like they become like basket people, putting in this lecture and that book and that one and this law of attraction and this mind control and this and that. And there because they're so intellectual, there's not much appreciation for simplicity. And I feel without simplicity, it's impossible.
That's very true. The mind loves complexity. The ego loves complexity. The more complex it is, the more you remain in the world of the mind, the past and future, and the need to understand, which keeps us also imprisoned within the mind.
Mm-hmm.
When you're truly present, your mind is silent. Thoughts have stopped. So where is their understanding? Where are beliefs? Where is spiritual understanding? Where is enlightenment? Everything dissolves. Everything disappears when you're truly present in the moment of now. Now you're awake in the truth of life, experiencing what Buddha experienced, experiencing what Jesus experienced or Ramana Maharshi experienced. You're in the direct experience. Your mind is silent. There is no understanding. Of course, there can be expression directly from presence, from silence, but you're not accessing your mind in order to express. The mind is an instrument of expression, but you're expressing from presence, from the source, from the silence at the center of your being. That's what's possible for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
The truth exists within each one of us, but it is known in silence. It's only available to us when we're present. It's not available to us when we're in the mind trying to understand or conceptualize or believe. The truth is beyond belief.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's very apparent watching your webinars. It's very apparent that that's where you're speaking from, and I love how you always pause every now and then and make sure that everyone present is present,
Right.
because otherwise it's impossible to get to the message. And
Right. And people need that reflection. You see, if you leave it to the ego to decide whether you're present or not, the ego will always say, this can't be it. This is too simple. This can't be it. I'm looking for more, says the ego. So it's very helpful to have someone like me who can look at you and say, yes, you're present, relax, this is it. Relax here, settle here, deepen here. You're at the doorway. This is it. As they would say in India, this.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Otherwise, the ego will have you looking, looking, looking. It will never stop. The journey goes on and on and on. Just be here now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the beauty of being around someone like you who's mastered it, and being able to reflect that back, of course. And I understand you're about to have a retreat in Japan and one in California, and I think that's so wonderful because people are able to be embraced in that energy, in that energy. There's no words after a while, in that presence for a good chunk of time, which is actually something I wanted to ask you about. Uh, when when you're present now, time doesn't exist. And yet it seems that there's a need to be in that presence for a duration in order for it to deepen. So somehow time comes in. How do you, what can you say about that?
Okay, well, it's important to know that presence exists on a vertical axis.
Mm.
The world of experience within time, our life within time, exists on a horizontal axis.
Mm-hmm.
There's happy, there's sad, there's past, there's future, there's joy, there's pain, there's light, there's dark. It's all duality, and it's experienced within time, within the past and future axis. So that's the world of experience within time. But then if we bring that into balance, those two aspects of duality within the world of time, then we'll come into presence. And presence is a vertical axis, not a horizontal axis. Mm-hmm. And you can become more and more deeply present. And there's a point on this presence axis where time disappears completely. Mm. Now, this is when you experience what Buddha is speaking about, or Jesus. You know what they're saying from your own experience. It's so obvious. You feel the oneness. You experience the presence of God. You recognize heaven on earth. This is at the very deepest level. It is profound. And once you awaken to this level, even if it's just for a few seconds, you'll never, ever lose it. It will never go away. It never goes away. Mm-hmm. But to the extent that we're caught in the mind, we can disconnect from it. So it's a vertical axis. Now, if you can also be superficially present. So you're not so deeply present that time has disappeared. Now time is available to you. You're still present. You're still fundamentally present. But you have your memories. You can plan the future. But you're not living in that world of the past and future. Mm-hmm. You're present. But you can play in that world of time. You have your memories. You can plan. You can have your relationships. You can go to work. You can organize and plan for this interview. Mm-hmm. Because time is available to you. The past and future is available to you, but that's not where you live. Mm-hmm. You live in the world of now. You play in the world of time. And every now and then you become so deeply present that time disappears. You go beyond that point on this vertical axis. Now time is. Relax here. Enjoy this. Settle here. Give thanks for this wondrous eternal state of oneness. Mm-hmm. So, but you don't have to stay there. That's the mistake people make. With full and true awakening, you can so easily flow between the timeless world of now and the world of time. Mm-hmm. You play in the world of time. You use your mind to play in the world of time, but you don't get lost in the world of time. You know where the truth is. It is here, in this moment. Me present with you, or me present with what is here. This is the truth. Now, I can play in the world of time. Why not? Now, if I'm going to play in the world of time, I might as well play well. Mm-hmm. I can use my mind to think, but now I think consciously. And when I'm finished thinking, I just spontaneously come back to presence, mm-hmm. because that's where I live. Everything changes when you reach to this fundamental level of presence. Mm-hmm. You don't even have to try to be present anymore. That's where you live.
Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, obviously, you practice being present, but then there comes a time where it just becomes natural. Is that correct?
Well, what happens is that in the initial stages of awakening, when you first step foot on this path, yes, you can have periods of time when you're present, maybe a few seconds, a few minutes, maybe if you're fortunate, a few hours or a few days or even longer. But until you reach a certain point, your home is the world of the mind. You're habituated to living in the mind. Mm-hmm. And so it's not long before you're called back to the mind. This is where you live. You have moments in presence or some time in presence, but you come back to the world of the mind. It's where you live. It's where you function from. You interact with people. You live your life from within the mind. But there comes a point on this path where a shift occurs, a shift in your home. You wake up one morning. You can't understand it. You don't know why it suddenly happened, but you have a new home.
Mm.
Your new home is the world of now. This is where you live. Of course, you can still think. You can use your mind, you can think consciously, but the moment you're finished thinking, you just spontaneously come back to presence. It's as if a rubber is attached to you and it pulls you back into presence.
Mm.
Now, before awakening, that rubber band is attached to you, but it pulls you back into the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of reversed. You reach that point on this path where you don't know exactly when that will happen, but you'll wake up one morning and it's happened because you've been following this path of awakening diligently, 2 steps: presence and mastery of the mind and ego, which ultimately will lead you to this shift that I'm speaking of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. How do you how does one deal with the that shift that you're talking about is something that obviously somebody on the path, somebody who started to practice being present, really wants to achieve, really wants it, because obviously that's the ideal goal, to have that naturally and not be bothered by the mind consistently. How do you handle the sense of expectation? Because I also know that expectation comes from the ego. So it seems to be you know what I mean?
Well, it's a very good question, and this is a dilemma that everyone has to resolve at some point if they're on this path of awakening. You see, wanting it will prevent you from awakening to it. That which you seek is already here. And as I said last Tuesday, the impossible paradox of our lives is that we're on a journey of becoming that which we already are. Mm-hmm. So your seeking is useful in the beginning when you're setting off on this journey of awakening. But there comes a point where the seeking has to drop away, where wanting presence has to drop away, where you don't even practice presence because practice is still a practice in order to achieve something or to get somewhere. Mm-hmm. Whereas what you're trying to achieve or what you're looking for is already here. What you want is already here. Mm-hmm. What you're seeking is already here. The present moment is already here. Just look around, you'll see it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The present moment is already here. It's always been here. It never goes away, and the present moment doesn't know how to go away. So awakening is really just a relaxing. It's a relaxing into being present with what is here. It's like you're very gently shifting the focus from the world of thought, the world of past and future, the world of concepts and ideas and beliefs. You're shifting that focus very gently into being present with something that is here. Mm-hmm. It's not practice. There's no trying. If you try, you will miss it because it's too simple. The mm-hmm. present moment is here waiting for you. Every tree is waiting for you. Every leaf moving on every tree is waving to you. It's saying, here I am. I'm here. I'm waving to you. Will you be present with me? Mm-hmm. Every flower is saying to you, look how beautiful I am. I'm trying to attract your attention. Is your story, is your dream that interesting that you don't want to be here with me, says the flower? Don't you know who I am, says the flower? I am God in the form of a flower, and I'm trying to attract your attention. But most of us just ignore the flower and say, don't bother me, I'm trying to get enlightened. And I'm glad you're laughing because it is a cosmic joke.
It is hilarious.
It is hilarious. We're all desperately trying to be enlightened and everything is already here waiting for us. We just need to relax. The other thing is, if there's even the subtlest hint of you trying to stop thoughts or escape the mind, it won't work because that's all judgment. You can't judge thoughts, you can't judge the fact that you're in the mind. You just recognize it for what it is, and then you shift your focus to being present with something that is here in the moment with you. If you can see it, hear it, feel it, taste it, touch it, or smell it, in this moment, you can be present with it. The moment you're truly present with something that is here, you come out of the mind because the mind is past future. Now you're present. Thoughts stop because thoughts are always past, future. Now you're present. You're present with that which is already present. Whatever you see, hear, feel, taste, touch, smell, you're present with it. Now you are an awakened being, at least in this moment, until you get caught again into the mind.
Yes. And, it's wonderful. Just letting the
Now, if you
audience.
become too present, now here's your problem. If you become too present, you won't be able to ask me any more questions.
I was just going to say, I was just going to warn the audience.
That's the dilemma of this.
I was just going to say, don't worry if there's a pause.
There'll be a pause.
Yeah, that happened. Oh, this is wonderful.
It's very hard to do an interview when you have no questions.
Well, there's really not much to say, but it's
well, we're sharing this with others who might be interested. So in a way, you're playing your role and I'm playing my role to support humanity in awakening, to support those who view this video in their own awakening. I mean, that's the whole point of this. I could just as easily be taking my dog for a walk along the beach, but you know, I'm in service to the awakening of human consciousness, and obviously so are you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this.
That's exactly why I do this.
Exactly. That's why I do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's because actually the truth is that presence is what is missing in everyone's life. And when they experience presence, or they experience someone who's present with them, it starts to open something up within them. I could honestly say to you that my presence is an invitation to the presence that is in others to awaken and be here. It's like a sleeping dimension of us. We've been in the mind, governed by the ego for so long, that presence has kind of taken a back seat.
Yeah, yes, I know. It's so important to be with someone who's present like you, because I'm sure people go home. I've seen it because my husband teaches it too. The people in his presence become present, and then they go home, and it's like nothing. It's gone. It's very hard to get back to it unless it's consistent. And
well, that's why step 2 is a part of my teaching, because
yes.
What you're saying is very, very true. It's very easy and simple to be present. That's really not the issue. The issue is remaining present as you live your life, as you go to work, as you engage in your relationships. And so we have to learn how to integrate presence into our day-to-day living, which is step 2 of this teaching. What pulls us out of the present moment? How does that happen? What's being triggered? So this is all step 2 in the teaching. It leads to mastery of the mind and ego, which is essential for true awakening.
Yes. We talked about the need to please people, the need to be approved. What are some of the other some of the other obvious ways that people get pulled out of presence?
Well, the first is the resistance of the ego. Most of us don't know what the ego is, and we don't know how to be in right relationship with the ego. And when I speak of the ego, I'm definitely not speaking in the same way that Freud or Jung or psychology speaks of the ego. I'm speaking of the ego in the context of human awakening, or the awakening of human consciousness. And if we're to awaken, we have to know, what is the ego? What is its role in our lives? How does it function? Why does it resist presence? And how do we overcome the resistance of the ego? So I would say the resistance of the ego, and it's very skilled at pulling us out of the present moment into the past or the future. The resistance of the ego is the primary obstacle to human awakening, but it's not the only obstacle. The second way we're pulled out of the present moment is if we're in denial of who we've become on this long journey through time and separation. You see, I can tell you, and I can tell everyone viewing this video, the truth of who you are. That's not a problem. So I'll tell you now, I'll tell everyone the truth of who you are. When you're present, in truth, you are love, you are acceptance, you are compassion, You exist in the realization of oneness. You are empowered from within. In truth, you are an eternal being who exists in oneness with God and all that is. Now, that's the truth of who you are. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm talking to everyone viewing this video. This is the truth of who you are. But to the extent that you're caught in the mind, caught in your story, caught in the past or future, caught in the dream, you disconnect from the truth that is always present within you and has always been present and will always be present within you. You disconnect. Then you're caught in a world of separation, and we get more and more lost in separation, more and more lost in illusion as we try and escape the pain of separation. Mm-hmm. So the question is, who have you become? I've shared with you the truth of who you are, but who have you become as you live your life, given the parents you have had, the circumstances of your life, maybe several of your past lives? Who have you become? Mm-hmm. Are you judgmental? Are you angry? Are you blaming? Are you guilty? Are you needy? Do you feel unloved? Do you feel unworthy? There's so I could go on and on. Mm-hmm. Are you guilty? Are you trying to please others? Are you trying to do the right thing? Do you feel you can't do it? Are you not good enough? I can go on and on. Who have you become? You see, most of us are deeply, deeply committed to fixing ourselves and changing all these aspects of who we've become, or we hide who we've become from others because they won't like us, or we project onto others who we've become. Mm-hmm. And this is a big mistake. Instead, you see, if you try and fix who you've become or change who you've become, that's a form of judgment. And judgment will keep you in separation more than any of these things. So how do we deal with this? What are we to do? Well, it's so simple. You're not trying to fix anything. You're not trying to change anything. You're not trying to hide anything. You're going through a process that occurs over time where you recognize, you own, acknowledge, and confess who you've become. Wow, look at me being judgmental. Wow, I'm judging myself. Oh, I'm needy. Oh, why don't you love me? I notice the feeling that I'm not loved or I'm not good enough is arising. We just bring everything to consciousness. We own, acknowledge, confess who we've become. And something miraculous happens because we're owning and acknowledging and confessing from within presence. Everything, it's all being revealed into the environment of presence. And so presence is loving, accepting, and compassionate. That's what creates the healing. Who we've become begins to relax as it encounters the energy of love, acceptance, and compassion, which is arising from presence. Mm-hmm. That's the second. The second obstacle is denial or judgment of who we've become. Mm-hmm. The third obstacle is repressed feelings. And the fourth obstacle is losing ourselves in others. And we're all so good at losing ourselves in others. If I want you to love me, I'm losing myself in you. If I want you to agree with me or accept me or approve of me, I'm losing myself in you. If I fear your rejection or your judgment, I'm losing myself in you. If this is what happens, and we're all doing this all the time. We're lost in each other. We're all mixed up in each other. So we have to free ourselves from those patterns where we lose ourselves. And how do I do that? By being aware of it as it's happening. Wow, I just noticed I wanted you to agree with me, or I wanted you to approve of me, or I'm afraid you'll judge me. I just noticed it. Wow, I'm confessing it. God, did you notice that? I did. That's really all you need. Nothing else. Just witnessing, owning, acknowledging, confessing. And it will lead to healing.
Mm-hmm. Is this something that people go through during the retreats?
In the retreats, we go through it big time, and we have a lot of fun as we go through all these patterns and liberate ourselves from these patterns. Mm-hmm. So it's actually a lot of fun. It's very dynamic, and people wake up.
Mm-hmm. Do people go through a lot of emotions that are being released, or what?
It's different. It's different with everyone. Some people have had a much more traumatic childhood or past than others. So
Mm-hmm.
the more traumatic your childhood, for example, if you experienced a lot of abuse in your childhood, or your mother was unable to show love or demonstrate love, or father drank too much alcohol or was very angry, all of these impact the child and lead to all sorts of repressed feelings within the child.
Mm-hmm.
And so as adults, we have to liberate those repressed feelings. So with some people, they sit there calmly enjoying the whole event in presence, and other people are on a pretty wild ride, liberating themselves from these repressed emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of fun for everybody to go through that, because I share with people how to be in right relationship with feelings. And there's really only one difficult feeling, which is anger. We have to learn how to be in right relationship with anger. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to awaken, because there'll always be someone coming into your life who will trigger that repressed anger within you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're no longer present.
Yeah.
No question.
I'm just enjoying the stillness of being present as you speak.
Good. The stillness of your own mind.
Yeah. It's very hard to think when you're present.
That's true.
Yeah.
But, you know, the mind is an instrument of expression. And so you can speak from presence, but I'm not sure any questions would arise out of presence.
Well, most of the questions are to be able to allow us to express.
Right. Right.
There is a very beautiful story you tell in the book, Journey into Now, that I just showed a few minutes ago. It's about the Buddha, and with the fly,
Buddha was sitting with his disciples, and a fly was buzzing around Buddha's head. And so he went like this and brushed the fly away. A few moments later, the fly had gone, but Buddha went like this again. And one of the disciples noticed and said, Buddha, I noticed that you did this the first time because there was a fly there. Why did you do it a second time when there was no fly? And Buddha responded, I noticed in the first movement, I wasn't fully present and conscious in the movement. I just wanted to correct that.
I love it.
Now that's a beautiful story that demonstrates really the level of commitment to presence that is necessary if we want to be like Buddha.
Yes.
Now, the good news is you don't have to be like Buddha all the time. You can sit in the coffee shops and gossip and have fun and just live your life. But every now and then, be like Buddha. Be that present that there's not a movement of your body that's not present or conscious.
Yes.
You're present as you look out through your eyes. You're present as you hear through your ears. You're present in the movement, even present as you eat your food or drink your water, whatever it is. There's such a very precise presence that opens up such a profound experience of presence. So every now and then be present at that level. And then don't hold on to it. You don't need to hold on to it because you can't lose it. It's always there. Yeah. But the real key is, in any given moment, can you just relax out of your story totally and be so deeply present that what I'm experiencing becomes a living, what I'm sharing becomes a living experience for you. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be present all the time. A lot of people make that mistake. Yeah. And there comes a point where you're always present, but not always deeply present. That way you can play in the world of time without getting lost in the world of time. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's just play. You're playing in a dream. You're playing in a story. And what I say to people is, if you're going to play in a dream, play well. Mm-hmm. Enjoy yourself. Don't take it seriously. In fact, presence is transcendent of your dream, transcendence of your story, transcendent of the past and future. And it's a transcendent state. So as you transcend your story, you transform your story. You don't have to do anything to transform your story. Presence will do it for you. It happens all by itself, simply by you becoming more and more settled and grounded and relaxed in presence. And then all the qualities of presence flow through into your life. Really, that's all it is. All the qualities of presence, love, acceptance, compassion, truth, power, is all flowing into your life because it's who you are. So of course your life is going to transform. Of course your story will change, but you're not trying to change it. If you try and change your story, then that's a form of judgment again, and it won't work. You have to just reveal your story. What is my story? Who have I become in my story? How am I caught in the story? What am I doing that keeps me imprisoned within the story? We need to take responsibility for how that happens. Instead of blaming others for how we get caught in the story, we have to take responsibility for what we're doing that catches us in the story. Mm-hmm. One of the most common examples of that is people still stuck in pain from their childhood, all the anger, all the hurt, all the hatred, because they didn't get what they needed in childhood, or they were abused or whatever. But what keeps them in that story is not the pain from the past, but still wanting mother or father to love them. And mother and father don't know how to love. But as long as that's there within us, we stay stuck in the story. We have to release ourselves from all of that. And in a way, we have to forgive those who hurt us. They didn't know any better. What did Jesus say? Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Yeah. And that's not a spiritual forgiveness. That's a forgiveness that will help us release from the past so that we're more available to the present.
Here we go again.
That's okay. That's okay. Your audience will love the fact that you're too present to ask any questions. I wouldn't edit that out. I'd leave that in.
Oh, I'm not. I'm only inviting the audience to be present with us.
That's right. That's right. And if they want to be present with us, just be aware of the body breathing. Be aware of the sound of our voice, or be present with us as they see the screen, as they look at the screen. Mm-hmm. It's actually remarkably simple. To be present is our natural state. It's unnatural to be lost in the mind. In fact, how is it even possible to leave presence? There's only one way to leave the present moment, and that is to think your way out of here. There's no other way. All thought, even spiritual thought, will take you out of the present moment into the past or future, into the mind, into the story. Even our quest for enlightenment is just part of the story. Mm-hmm. It's all story. Everything outside of them is our story. Mm-hmm. It's possible to relax, transcend the story, and become utterly present. Then you'll know.
And we're gone again.
Yes, we are.
Oh, my goodness.
See, right now, even over the computer, you are dissolving into light.
So are you.
There you go.
I can't even see the computer anymore.
I know.
Oh, my goodness.
That's one of the symptoms of presence.
Oh. Yeah. It's wonderful.
You see, when you're present, there's nothing missing. There's no problem. Mm-hmm. You're not looking for more. You're just here, present with what is here. It's such a deep relaxation. And when you're present, the deepest feeling is silence and peace. It's not even bliss. Bliss arises out of the silence. Ecstasy arises out of the silence. But bliss and ecstasy will pass. But silence remains, presence remains, pure consciousness remains. I am remains. All experiences pass, but the one experiencing remains, unchanging, infinite, eternal. I am that. I am. Thou art that. I am that. I am. Silence, presence, peace, love, oneness. I am that. I am. This is an unusual interview.
Yes, I must say so.
But a good one. We're probably conveying more in the silence, or as much in the silence as we are with words.
I believe,
Because,
I agree.
because that's what we all need to liberate ourselves from, the mind that never ever stops thinking. Those thoughts just keep coming, even if we're not intending to think. They just keep coming. And the result of that is that we find ourselves imprisoned within the world of the mind. And so many of us are trying to stop the thoughts, but that doesn't work either. If you try and stop the thought, that reinforces the thinking process. So in order to be present, you don't try and stop the thought. You simply shift your focus to that which is of the present moment. Something you can see or hear or feel, or you can close your eyes, your body breathing, the feeling of your hands touching or your feet upon the floor. You're just present with what is here. You're not trying to stop thought, but as you become present with what is here, thoughts stop all by themselves without you trying to stop them. Now, the thought might suddenly arise. Ooh, my thoughts have stopped. That's okay. Just notice that thought, let it go, stay present with the body breathing. And slowly, slowly, it opens up more and more those periods of silence where your mind is silent and you're utterly present with what is here. Then when you get caught in the mind, you get caught in the story, or feelings are triggered, whatever happens to catch you in the story, you know what you do? You say, thank you, God, here's my opportunity for mastery. Then you bring awareness to how that happened. What caught you in the story? You take responsibility for it. Gradually, slowly, you arise in mastery of the mind and ego. And that is what the ego is waiting for. The ego has been waiting forever for the true master to appear from within, to arise from within. Who is the true master? Is you in presence. It is the I am that you are. That's the true master. And the ego cannot be deceived. It knows the true master from the not true master. The true master is without judgment. The true master is silence. The true master is love, acceptance, compassion. The true master is allowing. Presence is allowing. So that's the dilemma. Presence, God and presence are without judgment. God and presence allows. God and presence are essentially the same thing. And so therefore, God and presence will not intervene against the ego. If the ego wants to be in control, then God and presence allows. That's why the ego will only surrender when it trusts the flowering of presence from within, when it knows the true master is arising and it can depend on you being present. If the ego can't depend on you being present, it won't relax, it won't surrender.
Yes. It feels like it has to defend you.
Exactly, and protect you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What I loved also about back to the Buddha story is the fact that he was so aware of whether he was deeply in presence or not.
Right.
To me, that is presence.
You don't miss a thing. Miss anything when you're present. So even if a thought arises, instantly you're aware of it. If a feeling arises, you're instantly aware of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You're just present with what is here, and you're incredibly alert and watchful in presence. Well, I'd say we're probably getting to the end of the interview, wouldn't you?
I don't know, when did it start? It seems like we've talked forever, for eternity.
Many thousands of years ago.
Most likely. Yes. Oh, it's been absolutely wonderful, Leonard. I really appreciate that you agreed to speak with me today. It's just been such an honor and such a pleasure to speak with you and to be present with you.
And it's really been a pleasure for me as well, I can assure you, because you've been present with me, and it's very clear to me as I speak, you know exactly what I'm speaking about. And so we're on the same page here.
Oh, thank you. That it means a lot to me to hear that. It's wonderful. This has been my life's dream, not dream like the other dreams, but my life's purpose since a very young age. And I've just been misled so much on the path for so many years, and now to find the truth is just, I'm so grateful.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my dear, shall we call it?
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you all the viewers who are watching. I hope you've been able to be present with us. And so I'll say
one final thing, Yuri. You
yes.
can always invite me to Hungary.
Oh, I certainly plan to. Yes, my husband and I actually are talking about doing a conference here, and inviting people like you, and it would be wonderful. Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yes. So the information about the retreats will be at on the credits. So you'll in the comments on the video. I'm sorry, it's hard to speak about these technical things, but you'll see it at the end of the video. And so thank you for watching. Good night if you're in Hungary or in Europe. Good day if you're in California, and everyone in between. God bless and stay present.
Okay, thank you, Nuri. Thank you.
Thank you.